I'm Brent. I've been working in the film industry for over a decade building software for artists. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make pop-up dialogues with PyQt. There are chapter markers down in the description, as well as a link to an article that contains all the code and commands that I use. Let's get to the content. I'm working within a virtual environment. If you haven't worked with Python virtual environments before, I highly suggest you go and look at my tutorial, which is going to be above, as well as linked down below, on how they work and everything you need to know about them. The things that I have installed in this virtual environment right now are PyQt 5, as well as IPython for better autocomplete. So let's look at some code. I already set up some code that will just create a main window for us. So let's look at that. I have some imports up at the top to a Q application and Q main window. I have a def for a main, where the main is just creating an application, creating a main window, and then showing the window and executing the application. And then I have a main window class that overrides QMainWindow so that we can do our work in it. So if we run this code, all we're going to get is a main window. So let's go ahead and do that. So if I run python main.py, you can see here we just get an empty main window that just has a title. So let's get to working with an actual dialog. We need something to make the dialog pop up. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a QPushButton to the main window as the central widget, and that's going to be the thing that triggers the QPushButton to pop up. So let's add a QPushButton. So first we're going to have to add it to our import. So we're going to do QPushButton, and then we're going to do self.button is equal to QPushButton, and I'm just going to make it say pop up. And now we need to make the push button actually do something. So let's connect that push button to a method. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create that method. So we're going to do def on button press. I'm going to do pass for the moment. And then we're going to connect up the push button to this method. So we're going to do self.button.clicked.connect, and then self.onButtonPress. Cool. And for the moment, I'm just going to add a print here so that we know that it actually worked. Okay, and now that we've connected the button to the method, let's add the button to the window. So we're going to do self.setCentralWidget and do self.button. And that should be it for us to be able to get that button to work. So let's try it out. Great. As you can see here, we have the window. It has a button that says pop up. And if we press the button, you can see here that we do get the pressed to happen. Now that we've gotten the button callback working, let's actually get a pop-up to pop up. So I'm going to close this out, and we're going to go back to the code. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to import QMessageBox, because that is the main thing that we're going to be using. So we're going to import QMessageBox, great. And then instead of printing out, we're going to create a message box. So message box is equal to QMessageBox. And we're going to give the parent of self. And then let's do some very basic things. So let's first set what the pop-up's window title should be. So we're going to do message box dot set window title, and I'm going to name it simple QMessageBox. And let's set some text for our pop-up. So we're going to do messagebox dot set text, and then I'll just put this is a QMessageBox. And then we need to do MessageBox.exec to make it actually pop up. So that's all the code we need for a simple pop-up with some text and a title to come up. So let's run it. And if we click, we get a message box. This is a QMessageBox and an OK button. Something to note is that you will see that we don't have a window title here. This is due to the fact that Macs do not show titles on their message boxes. And this is a standard for Macs. There's more information on the Qt documentation, and that will be linked in the article. But if you're working on a different system, you will see the window title text for this. Something else to note is this is a modal dialog box. And what that means is that you can't click on the main window. It doesn't do anything. It blocks. So until you actually address this message box as a user, you can't work on the main application. So if I hit OK, you can see that now it comes back and I can work with it, and I can hit the pop-up again and it'll come back up. So let's customize this message box to get it to be more of what we want. So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to set an icon for it. So let's go back to the code, and we're going to go down here before the exec, and what we're going to do is we're going to do MessageBox.setIcon. And then we're going to do the QMessageBox.question. So QMessageBox has a bunch of default icons that you can use. One of them is question, and so that's what we're using here. The article I have linked down in the description will have a list of all of the ones that you can use, so feel free to look at that. And the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to change what the buttons that we want to do. So what if we want to have this message box have a yes and a no button? We want to get some input from the user. And so what we're going to do is we are going to do MessageBox.setStandardButtons. And then we're doing QMessageBox.yes. Or, and then by or I mean pipe, QMessageBox.no. So this is a function that takes in what standard buttons that you want for your QMessageBox. And the two that I'm giving it are QMessageBox.yes and QMessageBox.no. You can see here that there is a pipe in between them. In PyQt, for this method, we are passing in a value that is made up of two constants, the QMessageBox.yes and QMessageBox.no, that are ORed together. A full list of all of the buttons are also going to be linked in the article, so please check those out if you want to do other buttons. And that gets us our button and our icon, so let's test it out. So if we click on the pop-up, you can see here we have our question icon, as well as a yes and a no. So we can click no or yes, and it works. Right now, we're not actually capturing what the answer is that we get from the user, whether they click yes or no. So let's actually capture that. So back in the code, one of the things that the MessageBox.exec function is going to be doing is it's going to be returning what button was pressed. So let's actually capture that. So we're going to do button is equal to the MessageBox.exec. And so just to show which one was actually returned, we're going to do an if statement and do if button is equal to QMessageBox.yes print yes, else print no. So let's run the code. So go over here and we run python main.py and we see our pop-up. And if we click on the pop-up, we get our QMessageBox that has our icon, the text, and our yes and no button. So if I click on the yes button, you can see here that it prints out yes. So let's open it up. If we click no, it prints no. Great, we're getting input and it works. If we go back to the code, I mean, this isn't a huge amount of code to get a pop-up box working. It turns out that there's an easy way to get this all done in a lot less code. There are a bunch of standard QItemBox messages that will do a lot of this for us. So let's look at one that will do the exact same thing as what we have working now. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down here and we're going to do button is equal to QMessageBox dot question. And we're going to pass it the parent, which is self. We're going to give it the title, which is going to be simple QMessageBox. We're going to give it the text. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to delete all of this code. And with that, we should have a working QMessageBox that did the exact same thing as what we had previously in a lot less code. So if we run it, we have our regular pop-up, and it has our question icon, it has our text, and our yes and no buttons. And so if we click on the no button, you can see here we still get the no. And if we click the yes button, we do get the yes. This is great, but even better is that there are functions specifically for a lot of other situations than questions. There's ones for criticals, warnings, informations about. All of these functions work very similarly, so just go check out the article for examples on how to use each of them. Thank you for watching. If there are any topics that you'd like me to cover in a future video, please put them down in the comments. I'm always looking for new ideas. If you got value out of this video, hit the like button, and if you want to see more, consider subscribing. And like all software made for movies, we test in production. See you around.